Greetings and welcome to step 29 of our awakening in 30 steps. Today's contemplation is on the wisdom realizing emptiness. And so what a challenge it will be for me not only to explain emptiness without having any deep and profound understanding of it, but also to capture it in a pithy little clip here. So let me preface today's post by just sharing with you a DM question that was sent to me regarding the last post, in which someone asked, well, if you have no deeper understanding of emptiness, what's the point? And if you can't stabilize your mind, if you've never had a shamatha experience, a very deep and sustained, stabilized mind as a result of meditation, then how can you see emptiness? And if you can't see emptiness, what's the point? And I think that's totally a totally fair question. And certainly someone like me who's been around the Dharma for more than 20 years, teaching for some time now, how is it that I can, with any good faith, discuss these things, practice these things, and yet at the very same time know that I haven't had any deep, profound realizations, haven't stabilized my mind to the extent that is actually required for that breakthrough? How do I get away with that, and how do I justify that? Well, I simply do it this way, which is I have, since the beginning of my training, acculturated my mind, accepted with some degree of confidence the continuity of consciousness over vast amount of horizon time. So I personally do subscribe to infinite life perspective and multiple life perspective. And it may very well be that I can't gain enlightenment in this lifetime. I mean, especially if I've put 20 years in and I'm still struggling, as you can well see. And I don't mind admitting some things have improved. I've had gradual incremental shifts in my life, but certainly not enough to convince me that at some point tomorrow or the next or a year from now I'm going to have some big breakthrough. That's why I commit to a gradual path. It's incremental, and that's why I also fundamentally, in the depth of my being, do believe that whatever gains I make now will also carry over, and at some point in the future and in my future lives, I'm going to pick up the gradual path wherever I left off in some way. My mind stream or the continuity of my consciousness will be impacted and imprinted by all of my previous studies, and in a way that's going to take me forward. I have come to that conclusion personally by way of what I've read in the texts, but also my discussions with great teachers, their own living example, and also through reason. The contemplation on the past and future lives is one of the foundational topics in the Lam Rim, and it's one I have great confidence in, and so that allows me to just sort of let go of that big destination and do whatever I can and with this precious human life. And if I can cultivate a little mindfulness, that's great. And if I can cultivate a little faith, that's great. And if I can cultivate a clearer sense of cause and effect, that's really great. And if I can, as a result of that, conjoin my perspective on life with a lifestyle that's a little more harmonious than when I started, or my forebears, or my culture at large, then that's great. And if I don't have any profound, radical, life-transforming enlightenment experience in this lifetime, it's not all or nothing. It hasn't all been lost. To me, it's still worth the pursuit. It's probably what I've chalked up to be the most worthiest pursuit of my lifetime. The most meaningful way I can spend my life is to cultivate my mind, even if I don't reach certain plateaus or milestones or summits. This is not the end of the game. This is not the end of the road. I have committed to the long haul. All of that is a personal reflection. I don't mean to impose any sort of worldview on you. I thought that was a really, honest question. I wanted to give it an honest answer. And it's in a way relevant to today's post, which is the step on emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness. And what I want to do in today's post is to just divide that into three sections. I want to give you a quick definition of emptiness. I want to give a vignette to illustrate it, and then I want to talk about the relationship of wisdom to the other perfections. Quick definition of emptiness is the lack of inherent existence. The lack of inherent existence. The lack. So it's a negation. It's not an assertion. It's not saying what's there. It's explaining or suggesting what's not there. Reality, phenomenon, objects, but also the self, the subject, and the interaction. So object, subject, and interaction all lack substantive reality or inherent existence. That means they don't exist independently from their own side. They don't have an independent, self-existing, autonomous nature. They are therefore only relational. The self is relational, objects are relational, interactions are obviously relational. This is the ultimate side of things. So if you imagine that reality is like a coin and has two sides, but it's really just one coin, there's the conventional side of things, which are called the appearances. Sometimes it's called the hallucination. And then there is the ultimate side of things, which is their lack of substantive reality. In other words, because things lack a substantive reality, they can be flexible, they can be dynamic, they can relate, they can change. Things can change and be perceived differently because they lack substantive reality or independent existence or intrinsic existence. Okay, so that's the definition: the lack of intrinsic reality to self-object and interactions, experiences. Here's a little vignette because that's a little technical mumbo jumbo. So I was just thinking of this little vignette. Maybe I can do it quickly. You go into an art gallery. There's a painting on the wall. There are three people looking at the painting all at once. I don't know. You're at the Met, Museum of Art. There, I'm not going to say what the painting is, but there are three people looking at the artwork. One is a curator of the museum, or maybe she's a curator of another museum. She has a PhD. She's studied artwork. Maybe this particular painting is of her favorite artist, and she's committed her whole college degree and master's degree on this particular artist. She knows all the nuances, the backstory, the history of the artist, the painting style and technique, the period of its genesis, everything about it. She's looking at that painting. The second person that's looking at the painting is some high school kid. Maybe he's a freshman. He's on a school tour back when we were before pandemic. He doesn't have a mask on. And he's looking at that painting, but he also has his earpods in, listening to whatever kids listen to these days. And he's not all that interested, as you might imagine. He's happy not to be in class, but he's looking at the painting and not having a reaction one way or the other. And then there is the third bystander, visitor. And she is, let's say, going through a very hard time. Let's say she's going through a divorce. She happens to be separated recently, going through a turmoil. She goes for a walk. She finds herself at the museum. She's strolling, quote unquote, aimlessly through the gallery, and she stops and sees this painting, and whatever she sees there starts to impact her in a way where she starts to cry. So you have the curator who is in awe of the painting. You have the student who doesn't really care one way or the other at the painting, and you have the woman who's going through a hard time, who's shedding a tear at the painting. They're all three having a reaction. It's one painting, three reactions. How do you, and this is the question. This is the question on emptiness. When all three are gone and the painting is just there in an empty gallery and the lights are off, which one is the actual substantive nature of the painting? Who's got it right? So as you think about this, it's going to dawn on you that, of course, no one has it right. The painting is empty from its own side. And because it's empty from its own side, it can be a empty canvas for the projection of the perceiver. The curator sees it one way, the student sees it another, and the brokenhearted sees it another. And so where is the painting coming from? The painting is dependent. It is dependently arising on the basis of the perception of the perceiver. So that's emptiness. It shows that there's a painting there, yes. It's got colors and shapes and sizes, but mostly the experience that it's creating is in the eye of the beholder. And so then emptiness is then combined. The lack of intrinsic reality doesn't make sense on its own unless it's combined with the perceiver and the karma of the perceiver, or the habitual mind of the perceiver, or the associative process of the projection making apparatus that superimposes a reality on top of the painting. So someone who's sculpted their mind based on study and interest goes and sees something with tremendous awe. Someone who doesn't do anything one way or the other in relation to this painting is disinterested. Somebody whose state of mind is colored by a past breakup and has associative links and memories of love lost is going to experience it in a different way. So herein lies how the perfection of wisdom works with all the others. The stabilization of mind I talked about last post, but all the socially inclined perfections, generosity, morality, patience and perseverance, all sculpt and color the perception-making apparatus, so that we can perceive reality in a different way. If you want to be the kind of person that experiences reality with much more joy, with much more benefit, with much more creativity and skill in social engagement, if you want to be an artist, a life artist, a sculptor of your reality, you have to understand that life is a canvas, it's open, and you have to understand that your experience is contingent on your perception. And so if you're having a bad nightmare or a bad day, it's the karma ripening from the things that you have said, thought, and done in the past. And if you want to change that, you have to adjust your mentality to train the bodhisattva grounds of much more generosity and much more integrity of ethics and much more patience and much more perseverance. And that would shape-shift reality so that you could see and experience reality differently. Because it's empty, we can transform it. How do you transform it? The 6 perfections. Who do you transform it for? Not only oneself, but for others. Not only just for the temporary experience, but the long-term experience. This is a very short insight into emptiness, the definition of the lack of intrinsic reality, how it actually works or is practically applied in our life. I mean, anything that we're going through right now, you just look to your neighbor, one to the left and one to the right. They're in the same world, but they're having a different experience. How do you account for that? It's mostly our karma and what we have cultivated in the past based on our thoughts and ideas and speech and behavior. It's left an imprint on the mind. It's coloring the mind. In the future moment, that perception will filter reality or project on reality a certain thing, and that's how we create a hamster wheel. We can break the cycle of our hallucination. We can shape-shift reality. That's the empowering, liberative insight of emptiness. So today is the 29th step of the 30 steps of awakening on the perfection of wisdom, the insight into emptiness. Okay. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this one, and I look forward to reading the posts and heading into our last step together. Until then, all best wishes.